Welcome to the Awkward Conversations podcast. My name is Damien and today's guest is Elsie Trainor from the SDLP, running in South Belfast. Elsie has really been working hard to get elected. She's been actually canvassing since October, so very early start to the canvassing. I think a lot sooner than many others, but she's really keen to hit the ground, get to know people, and it was a really good podcast today because it helped me get to know Elsie because I didn't really know her too well before the podcast. Unfortunately, the only thing I knew Elsie really for was the thing that she went viral for, and the thing she went viral for was not something that I think any politician wants to get viral for. Elsie was attacked in Ormeau Park when she confronted some people who were stealing her posters. So the video she took of that attack went viral, and we get into that in this episode, and we also get into the aftermath of the attack and how she was feeling afterwards, which is something that hasn't really been touched on in any interviews. So really good episode today, you'll enjoy it. Elsie Trainor, South Belfast candidate for the SDLP. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Very recently on making headlines, but probably not for the reasons you would want to, but definitely happy to have you here. And yeah, how are you feeling at the minute?
Thanks for having me here, Damien. It's great to be on. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling full of energy. We're in the final furlong, and still a little bit to go. And it's been a fabulous experience so far. You know, I'm new to this. I'm new candidate, but I'm also new to politics. So it's been, I wouldn't say steep learning curve, but a deep learning curve. Yeah. And it's been good fun. It's been educational. It's been a graft, and I have loved it.
It's a long journey for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
What have you found in terms of it? Have you any kind of standout people you've met maybe on the doors, or any standout people within your party maybe helped you along, maybe some of the political nuances which mightn't be immediately apparent to us mere mortals who are not in the political sphere?
I think it has been long because I was selected in September, and so I know most would have got out in the doors about 6 weeks ago, but because I was coming into this for the first time, the most important thing that I needed to do was get out in the doors straight away. Yeah. So I went out in October, and I've been out every single week since October, with the single exception of Christmas. And I'm really proud of that, and I've really enjoyed that. So these last 6 weeks have been a doddle because it's been quite sunny, the evenings are long. Yeah. October, November, January, grim. And you know what, as well, when the election isn't in the immediate horizon, people are a little bit more, their guard is a little bit more down and they're more honest. Yeah. And so the standout moments then are sort of like, you're having really true conversations with people. You're knocking their door to hear what they have to say. And sometimes, maybe because it's coming out of COVID, maybe somebody has knocked on their door in a while and asked them what they think. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes there's a lot in it. It's quite emotional. You hear, because health is the big thing, right? Everybody's telling you this. You know that health is the big issue. But how you hear health is the big issue is always a big story. People do say, just in sound bites, there's a big issue with the waiting lists. But actually, normally they tell you their personal story. They tell you how they're personally affected, or how their wife is sitting in the front room and she's personally affected. And that's not, you can't hear that lightly. You listen to that deeply and you take it in, and you don't say, all right there, Joe, so give me your number one and see you later. You have to be there for that person. So the standout things has been that it's been emotional. You go deep with the people. If you ask people what's on their mind, you have to be prepared to hear it, and I like that. I'm kind of empathetic, and I love people. I love meeting people. And I think sometimes maybe that's what draws people out as well. They see that you're actually there to genuinely listen. And maybe because you're a female face as well, or, there's something that they just go a bit deeper. But I find that it's been quite, it's not all about the hard corners of politics. It's more about the people and their hardships often, and there's many of them. And what I also find is, people are really despondent. I find that more so as you come to the election where you're actually talking about voting. People are really despondent, and oftentimes people say to you, their starting point is, I've given up, I've had this for too long. And it's very hard, for me to say as I'm in my 40s. It's hard for me to say to, 76-year-old man, oh, you must never give up, because you know what? He knows more than me. He knows he's been through this a lot. But so sometimes I find I'm not even canvassing for me. I'm canvassing for, speak up, raise your voice, vote. And that's a very... it's a very high energy canvas you have to bring to the door, and it comes naturally. It's what I bring, but it's you're not just knocking the door. Are you all right, sir? What are you thinking for your first and second preference? You're trying to energize people and say, don't give up. Change is possible. You have to vote for it. The only way we have what we have is because we voted for it previously, and so it's fascinating. I love it, Damien. I really do.
So obviously you guys are pro United Ireland Party, just part and parcel of the course. Do you think you'll be able to combat those who are concerned about United Ireland and don't want to unite Ireland by showing that you're really genuine? You're going to help them and work with them and give them and maybe hope for maybe not their first vote, but maybe like a second preference kind of thing. Do you think you'll be able to break through? Obviously, when no one's it's we're disaster at the best of times when it comes to voting. Yeah. But it has been interesting in recent years. There have been upsets and changes. And especially with COVID, I think people are reevaluating things. Do you think you can? Yeah, I think. Through?
Yeah, I think when I go to the doors, people don't come to me. Around our constitutional aspiration. I don't think that's at the forefront of their mind. I think people are tired of polarised politics, and I don't think they consider us ever in that space. The SDLP has always been common ground. Our foundation values were common ground. We're architects of the Good Friday Agreement, which is common ground. Our day and daily is common ground, and I think they recognize that in us, and we are never, our constitutional aspiration is what it is, and that's I think acceptable to all sides, because our focus is always on working together, working the common ground, looking at the issues that matter behind your front door, which are societal issues, and society only works when you bring everybody together. If you leave anybody behind, you're building a broken society, and that's what we've been saying forever. So it's not as if we've found the shiny new thing. John Hume always said, the famous line, you can't eat a flag. And we're going to the doors where people are struggling to put food on their table, and Stormont is still fascinated by identity politics and playing each other. So that's more relevant than it's ever been. So I never feel like I come with a burden or a package of our constitutional position, because our constitutional position has always worked side by side with common ground politics, and I think people are wise to that here from all sides.
As you say, it's aspirational. It's not like you're not calling for it day in, day out, and all the rest of it. You're focused on the issues. That's genuinely it sounds like, from what you're saying, it sounds like you have a good chance of getting those people, people you're meeting, to realize that and give you a chance. So that's
and you do hear that. You do hear from unionist voices all the time that aspect of it isn't what is going to motivate them at the polling station. And what is just being tired of being played for fools. We're not fools. We're probably the smartest. The people of here. We're well wise, and being sort of constantly played doesn't really sit well. And I think, you know, I often see that.
Do you think, like, how many doors do you think you've knocked? Do you have any of them? How many you've knocked? Is it...
That and spatial awareness would not be my strong point. But honestly, I've been out, like I say, every single week. So initially, you know, the soft start, which you would wonder, is it a soft start? It would be out every Thursday night and every Saturday. And then, you know, ramp that out. Now I'm out every day, and I'm out twice a day. But I don't know, but I don't think to myself when I land on a street, I need to get to the bottom of the street. I have the conversations I want and need to have, and then, you know, you might get a fair wind with a few houses that aren't home, and then you'll have another long conversation. So it's not really a numbers game, it's more a learning, you know, it's an engagement and developing a pattern in your head. You know, you can't come to politics or anything and think you know it. You have to find out, you have to do a bit of research, and you can't be told by others. You have to hear it directly. And, you know, it's a really you know, open and valuable channel of communication that we have. You know, we're allowed to knock people's doors and ask them, but we're their political representatives, and if we don't represent what they're saying, you know, we can't do our job effectively. So it's really important that we get the feedback on the doors, and that it's not just an election game, that should be an ongoing narrative.
Like, I like to joke with candidates who say, you know how many doors they've knocked, but, you know, it's like, if the politics game doesn't work out, you can go into, you know, the black taxi driver. You will know every single street. I mean, no need for Uber, no need for...
Yeah. I could tell you how many bananas I've eaten, because they seem to be my go-to. I might be a slight tinge of yellow by the time this campaign is over. They've just kept me going. But it may not make the manifesto, but I may not ever eat another banana after this.
And out of curiosity, well, Kelly Armstrong, I asked her, she's not, I think she said 9,000 doors, maybe 8,000 doors, I can't remember, it was 8 or 9,000 doors. I asked her how many times people asked her about the protocol. Twice.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be the
it's
biggest
not.
issue.
It really is not. It really is not. You know, we don't vet our doors. We if you're on the register, we knock your door, and absolutely, it never ever comes up.
Which,
yeah,
you know,
we're tied in knots
something
about it. The media's tied in knots about it.
Yeah.
Our stormont has collapsed because of it,
Yeah.
and it's not what the people are talking about, and they haven't been.
Yeah, which is interesting. Chatting to Sir Jeffrey yesterday, we actually feel bad we didn't actually get chatting about the protocol, and we got chatting about many other things, but I guess that's not really what the podcast is about. It's about getting to know our candidates. So you're from Laois?
Yes.
And yeah, what was childhood like? Where did you grow up in Laois? And yeah, if you tell us a bit about your family. And
well, I'm also a girl of borderland. I grew up in County Laois, but lived on a farm, and our land has a river that runs through it, and just across the river is County Kildare. So bordered with County Kildare, and also bordered with County Offaly. So I would live, you know, between sort of Munstreven and Portarlington. I went to school. I grew up in a rural community, a great community, real, you know, tight, know all your neighbours. You know all your older people, you know all your younger people. Real tight community. And like I say, I'm from an agricultural background, and I went to our local primary school, which would have been like a 3-teacher school. It is now. It's grown significantly, but those were long days ago. And I just had sort of a fabulous childhood. I was the youngest of 10 children. So I would say, you know, and we all came quickly one after another. So I would say we didn't have lots in terms of material things. You know, we were, you know, farming, especially, you know, the across different areas of like the UK, you know, farms are large, but where I come from, farms are, you know, you just get by. And when you have 10 children, and our focus was always very much on education, and, you know, up, in my mother's and my grandmother's, education was always, and my father's and on that side too, education was always very, very big for us.
Yeah.
So my mother and father, my mother came from a really small family, just her and her sister. My mother absolutely loves children, and we had 10 in our family, but that essence of, the importance of education was huge. So from, when I was a baby, my eldest brother was already in Trinity, and my next brother was in UCD. So we were always sort of, you were sort of paying how you go locally, but you were also like paying for rental properties in Dublin to get my parents were to get their like sons and daughters off to university. So there was never, the money always seemed to be tight, because we were always going, that was our focus, and that was never a bad thing, because there was an absolute abundance of crack. Our house was great crack. And I had 7 brothers, and the best investment we ever made was we bought a second-hand pool table. And proper bought it from a pub with, you could, they push in the coins to get the balls out. It had been disconnected, so free pool. And the whole neighborhood would spend their nights in our house. The bicycles we lined up in front of the house, and it was always great crack, because all my brothers were older than me, so all the teenagers coming through, all the good music, all the, so you always had like a real ability to sort of, be one of the gang, get your voice heard. I knew about Bob Dylan and David Bowie and all of that before like any of my girlfriends and my peers that were maybe the eldest of a family of 2 or something. It was all going on in our house, and I think everybody kind of was aware of that ours was a house to go to, and there was always somebody there, whether there were older people telling their stories or younger people or little ones around. It was just a great place where you didn't need loads of hobbies and outlets, because you sort of made it amongst yourselves. And then living on a farm as well, we literally had the whole gambit, the puppies and the chickens, and it was great childhood. And then I moved on from there, obviously, to second level school, moved to Dublin like the rest of my family largely had done. Went to UCD, studied there for 4 years, and then joined the world of work and worked in Dublin for 4 years. And at this stage, you're kind of getting into Dublin at the, peak of the boom. And I kind of felt like everything was, coming to me very easily. And I kind of felt a little bit uncomfortable with that. And, I'd got a good job, and I'd got into kind of a, senior position after like relatively short term, and I think that was indicative of the boom, but also of me. And I was driving a company car, and life was all good, and I didn't like it, because there's a lack of depth or something to sort of everybody having and wanting, and I didn't really, for all the crack it was, and it was good, and Dublin was a great scene at that time, there was something deeper within me that wasn't satisfied. And after 8 years in Dublin, my friend Gillian and I, we headed off for a, round the world traveling, headed off to South America, the two of us, and we had a great, long immersive trip and a fabulous time. And ultimately, she stayed in Australia, and I traveled through Asia on my own, and that was a great thing to do. It's really empowering sort of stuff, and the crack along the way was always mighty, but there was also always more to it. And you got a sense of deprivation and the special essences of some areas, and I was constantly, when you saw communities that were less developed, was constantly remembering my own childhood, and just kind of a way that had become lost. Just simple things like, I don't know if like a racer bicycle. When I was growing up, like all my brothers had a racer, and we didn't have a girls' bike, so if I wanted to cycle their bike, I'd have to put my leg underneath the crossbar and cycle that way. And I remember seeing that, in communities in Asia and stuff, and thinking, I get that. I love this. I'm at home here and I'm comfortable. So when I came back from there, I just didn't really want to return to Dublin, and I didn't want to be away. My father is elderly, and my family are very, very important to me. So I wanted to be somewhere where I was, very accessible to home, but I wanted a totally different change of scene. So I came to Belfast, and I had no great plan. Actually thought I would leave after a year, just give it a try. I had a minor love interest here at the time, and I said, right, I'll give it a try, and I'll laid my cards on the table that I would be gone after a year. Turns out love interest was gone after way less than a year, and I was just fascinated by Belfast. I loved what it had to give, and that's 20 years ago. Just really, and I was not for leaving. I was never for leaving after that. I knew nobody.
20 years ago, Belfast wasn't as developed as it is now.
Yeah, maybe that was one of the good things about it. Belfast was fabulous. I knew nobody. I had no job. I didn't have a single friend here. Not a single friend. And I remember just that feeling of one, freedom, which was appealing to me coming from, having been traveling. I loved the anonymity of it. I could go to a gig or whatever and just enjoy it and go home and whatever. But as always happens, if you're that way inclined, I just made friends so quickly and so easily, and people were so open, and it wasn't at a particular juncture in life where it's easy to make friends when you're starting university or but everybody was settled in their own walks of life, but very, very open to somebody new on the scene. And also the work-life balance was just so completely different to what I'd known. In Dublin, you worked hard all day and you worked late, and you commuted home in dreadful traffic, and you got home late and you got home tired, and you did it all again the next day. And there was fun to be had at the weekends, but you were very exhausted all the time. Whereas here it was kind of old school. Not everybody, but lots of people kind of finished work at 5 o'clock, and the evening was your own. And at that time I had no children, and so I just found I could really enjoy life. I started horse riding, and I got involved in martial arts, and through martial arts I made the best friends. I made lifelong friends, and that just kind of drew me in, and soon I sort of realized that I never want to leave here. It's a kind of the perfect mix for me, and could see the real qualities of the people here. Very, where we come from, boom Dublin, where everything was, how expensive is this and how expensive is that, and that was, something to be held, up as something important. Whereas here it was okay, so that restaurant is bring your own, that one's too expensive to go to, and everything's really open like that, and I loved that, and very open about, okay, we'll do a kiddie and we'll do this and that. That's not the way people socialise in Dublin. They have a whole different attitude. Everything's you can afford everything, but you can afford nothing because everything's so expensive, but you're afraid to say it. And there was just a lovely openness, and I just loved here, and was never for leaving. And I moved to South Belfast when I arrived, and I've never left South Belfast.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And in terms of the friends you made and stuff, do they get that some of your sensibilities growing up on the farm, and going up obviously down south or whatever, is different from theirs? And do they kind of any your unionist friends, for example, they were asking about it, or any curiosity about the rural Irish life?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're nosy people. Belfast people are nosy people, and we always love sharing our stories. I don't think that changes background to background. I mean, I still love that. I've got elderly neighbours up the road, and we come in, and she tells me stories about, she grew up as a an only child, and in a, you know, her unionist background. I tell her about, you know, mine. It's just, I think we're always interested in each other's stories anyway. We're kind of a storytelling nation. And no, you know, I don't think I'm an anomaly. You know, South Belfast is so diverse. You know, one minute you're, you know, socializing with your Italian or Russian or German friends, and next you're with your, you know, Fermanagh and your Armagh friends. You know, it's just a mixed bag, and it's the better for it, you know.
In terms of interviews you've had so far in the run up to the election, how have you found them all? Or have you had any uncomfortable ones, or any ones where you're like, oh, they were a bit, or not harsh on you, but maybe, you know, like Nolaning you, for want of a
yeah. The honest answer is no, because I don't have an opportunity to have interviews. You know, I'm a new candidate and I don't really have a platform, and that can be difficult because it's hard to cut through then, because people don't get to hear your voice, they don't know who you are. And then if they don't know who you are, it's kind of chicken and egg. Well, do I invest in this person? Do I, you know, I you know, her photograph looks the same as the photograph next to it, and she's saying the same sound bites as this person next to it. So I haven't had, you know, and it's a really important thing, you know, to be able to hear the voice. And that's why I've been so focused on the doors, because as a new candidate, the only way you can really do it is doing it one-to-one, and that's not ideal, because broadcast you reach more people than you do like by doorbell. But no, so I haven't had, like, I've not had William Crawley or Nolan or anything like that, and I don't know how I would feel about it. Phone in, yeah. Elsie from the Ordinary Avenue. Yeah. No, the thing is, I guess, you know, it could be daunting or grueling, but yeah, let me at it. Let's see how I cope. Yeah.
You don't strike me as like a wilting flower or anything. You strike me as not shy at all about, you know, any sort of challenges on that front. So that's great.
Yeah.
Does having a big family kind of help with that kind of thing?
I don't know, really. I don't know, because I think I'm my own self in my family. Not everyone in my family is like me. You know, my I have two sisters and they're not like me. We're probably, you know, my mother is very, she's a beautiful, quiet, thoughtful person with real grit, and it's quiet grit. You know, she's just an absolute lady. And my father was sadly, he's passed away, very like social, heart of the community, big man for fun, good stories, you know, and that's why they were probably a perfect couple. But so we have elements of both of that. It's still, like, you know, you could still say, you know, you're your mother's daughter or your father's son, you know, there's that, you know. I think probably it's written, it's a bit of both, isn't it? But I'm a private person too, you know. I love meeting people, but until all of this, I wouldn't have had a Facebook account. I wouldn't have had a Twitter account. I wouldn't have posted photos of my children. I would never give an update of what I was doing in a day. My attitude would be, if you want to know me, you know, speak to me, and I'm happy on that. But yeah, so I'm private in that way. I just I don't. That doesn't float my boat, and I'm you know, I feel comfortable in this environment. But probably was the thing that made me most reticent was that kind of opening up of myself and my whole family. Whereas, like, we're sitting in a very conversational, so that's very natural to me. But to, you know, kind of broadcast that to the world, it's different. And
Twitter, like Twitter is a cesspit. Like, it is a cesspit. Yeah. Like I love Twitter. It helps us get ourselves out, you know.
Yeah.
And like we have our trolls, which, like, I quite enjoy. Like, as long as the insults are funny, I really enjoy them. But if they're not funny, it's like,
yeah. Well, sometimes I feel, you know, I get that too, and I feel like I would love to come back and say, but I can't, because if you go down that road, you know, you're just opening a can of worms. So actually, it's a real false discourse. You make your opening comment, and you kind of can't comment for beyond that, because the pylons are just so depressing.
Naomi Long, she doesn't, she makes light work out a lot of them. She likes to
I know sometimes I just feel life's too short for like chasing down rabbit holes, and you know, we just need to you know, I'm just open with what I have to say, and I'm not going to, you know, argue until you're sunken into your shoes about it. You can have a comeback, but it's just sad when it's always so, or often so. I mean, I get a lovely response on social media as well, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, you know, like you say, there is a cesspit element to it.
We had Naomi on the podcast there recently, and she was saying that, you know, it was like a running joke in her household. You know, it's the old meme of like, you know, the wife's you know, tweeting away, and the husband, like the soundbite is the husband calling her saying, "Come up to bed, darling, you know, it's late," or whatever.
Yeah.
And she says, "Just a minute, there's somebody wrong on the internet.
I just need to fix."
It seems to be from chatting to all the candidates that female candidates seem to get it a lot harsher than the male candidates for whatever reason. Sexism, whatever. Maybe more males maybe been on Twitter for whatever reason, but it does seem from chatting to people that women get it a lot harsher for.
Yeah, that probably just amplifies something that is actually, you know, there in society, and we would like to believe it's more latent than it is, but it's probably it's a very real part of society. Misogyny has run through every generation, and it's in some respects it's systemic in some, you know, areas, some professions, and I've lived a life of dealing with misogyny, and it doesn't get me down, but it doesn't make me proud. It's not surprising that it's amplified on Twitter, because it's certainly there in real life.
Like it's interesting with obviously the whole Me Too movement. You know, shone a light on it, and it helped the world realize, I think, very powerful people can do very nasty things, but also it's almost an everyday occurrence. In a lot of industries, even with people who aren't that powerful, do seem to still get away with it. It's very true. Yeah, and even obviously there's a lot of talk of the Johnny Depp trial with like Amanda Heard, isn't it? She it's the prevailing narrative from people commenting is that, you know, oh, this is proof that he's vindicated. Well, it's like, well, is it proof that he's vindicated, or is it proof that maybe there's two sides to every story? I don't think it's proof that he's vindicated, but it seems to jump like from, you know, there's two, you know, it seems to like just a giant leap. Well, we're gonna forget everything he did because some of the stuff she did wasn't very nice either.
I'm not really across that one, I have to say. I've seen some WhatsApps and stuff on it, but I haven't really kept. There's a few other things more high in my horizon at the moment, so I'm not really across like Johnny Depp and that. But what was I going to say about that is I've lost my train of thought on the whole JD situation.
Look, it's important stuff. You know, you really need to get on this.
I think I'm going to win an election without knowing about Johnny Depp. Fooling myself.
You must be getting that a lot on the doors. It's funny. It shows you what I spend my time on. Ridiculous, like celebrity divorces. You've obviously unfortunately been negatively impacted on the hands of males on your campaign trail. What was the circumstances around that, or how did that start? Or you spotted people, guys taking down your posters? Is that what it was?
Yeah, sort of. I was at home. We'd actually done our campaign launch that day over in on Cultureland, West Belfast. And so I was standing at home, about to go out on a canvas to the market, wearing the dress I've been wearing to the launch that morning, standing on my bare feet, hanging up the washing, just like I would say 20 minutes, half an hour before I was about to go out the door. And I got a phone call saying that somebody was outside, Paisley's Church on the Ravenhill Road, taking down my posters with a set of ladders. And I said, right, and they said, come out, because I don't live very far from that. And they said, come out, call the police. So I pulled on my what I call my runners, you call your trainers. I pulled on my trainers. I was in my bare feet, pulled on my trainers and grabbed my phone, said to my husband, have to go, someone messing around with posters. I'm going to call the police. And he's like, okay. And I ran out the door, called the police. And when I got to the Ravenhill Road, they'd moved on, but I could see them ahead. And they were like going with ladders, one lamppost to the next, cutting down my posters, putting them under their arm and walking away with them. And this is like, you probably know the Ravenhill Road at 5:30 on a workday evening. It is chocker. It's like bumper to bumper. So they were definitely wanting, brazen. It was so brazen, it was so blatant. They really wanted to be seen. They wanted to say, this is what we're doing. This is us. Our intention is this, and this is what matters in this area. Yeah. So it was just so, it wasn't thuggery at night. I'd had my posters taken down on Park Road as soon as I put them up, but it happened in the dead of night, and we just put them back up the next day, and that said nothing about it. But this was completely different. This was like sending a message. They were going systematically along, and they probably would have kept going until they got to the end of Carryduff. I don't know what their intentions were, but they had all their equipment, had their gloves and their ladder and everything. So I rang it in to the police, who were really responsive actually, and I gave them the description of the guys that I could see, and then finished on the phone to the police, gave them a location, and I started filming them. And I had no intention to challenge them. I was the other side of the street, but when they saw me, their ladder was at the lamppost that is the entrance to Ormeau Park Golf Club. And so they abandoned their ladders, hoods up, collected the posters, and headed off through the park. So then I decided, right, now the police aren't going to be able to get them, because the police are directed to come to Ravenhill Road. And if you go into that park, yourself, big park, 6 exits. And I just wanted to track and tag where they were. But anyway, in my gusto, they saw me running after them, and they dropped their posters and they started to run. And there's a turnstile at the end of the golf club, and I got there at the same time as the second guy got there. So he knocked me up against the gate, and I got a blow to the side of the head from him. And the other guy walked on at that stage, thinking the whole thing was over. So I just gathered myself again, and I went. You probably saw this the little snip that kind of got a little bit viral. I videoed it. I followed him, and I said, why did you do this or whatever. And one of them veered off to the left. They were just walking along at this stage. One of them veered off to the left, but lunged back on me to steal my phone. And I had to really, I had to hold it tight. I had to crouch down, and his hand was right in. I could feel him like between my hand and my body, trying to get it, but he couldn't get it. And then he just pushed me, and and they'd been shouting horrible things around when we were at the turnstiles of the gate. They were shouting all sorts of abuse at me. And so then again I gathered myself again, put my phone back on record, and filmed them a little bit more. And then they realized I was sticking with them, so they started to properly run, and I stopped filming, and I started to properly run, and I ran the whole way through to the other end of the park and out onto the Ravenhill Avenue and London Street and Delaware Street. Followed them because I was trying to tag for the police, and I was speaking to the police the whole time. But that was where they kind of chased properly. They took off and I took off, and sadly I did lose them. And within a few minutes, the police arrived, And so I jumped in the back of the car, but we didn't see them immediately. But we have really good footage of them that haven't obviously released of, when they're actually in the act of taking down the posters, and just clear shots of their faces. So I'm really hopeful. I don't think they're the type of guys that won't be raising their heads above the parapet again. And I don't mean on the political stage. I mean in general. So hopefully, they will be brought to justice, because that was the reason for it. And ironically, what it did do is it shone a light on that whole intimidation and how the stoking up of elements of the community, how it's really dangerous, and it's bringing out the worst in our society. And probably those guys weren't intending to go out and come across me and assault me or abuse me or try to rob me, but they did do all of that. So it's kind of dangerous when you let the genie out of the bottle, what happens next. And also it's really important that intimidation is seen, because like you say, Twitter is a cesspit, and that could quake me inside, but it doesn't. But that happening on the street is a illumination of that. And it's really important that other young women, or I'm not sure if you could call a 43-year-old young, but other women see that, even if this happens, it doesn't deter us. We still have a right to stand, and you have a right for me to stand. You have a right to choose me, or you have a right not to choose me. But it's really important that I'm there, that I'm on the stage. And it's definitely been picked upon to leave the stage because I'm progressive. I would say because I'm a woman, and probably because I look like an easy target. I probably look like somebody that would easily scare. And then that's just like one less progressive for whoever did their bidding to worry about.
Elsie, from what you've described and from the shocking footage, and it was shocking,
and it was rough.
Your story is shocking.
Yeah.
Is that you're a formidable character who, they mess with the wrong person.
Yeah,
actually, so well
done. And but with that, Damien, I have a great, thanks, and I take that, and it was rough, and it wasn't nice, and the next day wasn't nice. But with that, the irony is that those guys have no opportunity served to them. I'm the one who went home to my husband and my dog and my 3 kids and people who care. And I don't think they go home, or maybe 10 years ago when they were children, did they go home to anyone who cared? Or are the people that are meant to be their role models, are they kicking the stool from underneath them every single day? And that's the irony. That's why I'm in politics. And the sectarian abuse that was shouted at me, I felt like saying, you don't realise I'm in this for you, for us all. If you're this ill-served and unhappy, it's not working for any of us. We need you as much as we need you and me. We need a functioning society, and for a cohort to be left aside and be used as bait is fundamentally wrong, and we need to get that fundamental corrected.
What was the aftermath like? So obviously the police would have maybe dropped you home or whatever. Like, what happens immediately after being assaulted and abused and tried to be robbed? What does that look like? Yeah. If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no, I don't. Of course not. And it's funny because most people don't ask that. They kind of say you were powerful and you were determined, but there is an aftermath. So that evening I felt fine, and I was fired up, and I was, I was in my boots. I did the right thing, and that night I just could not sleep. I couldn't sleep at all. Morning came and I hadn't slept. And I went as I always do. I took my 3 children, I walked them to school, and I thought to myself, I'm surrounded by, I didn't think this, I am surrounded by people on that walk to school who absolutely have my back and love me, and I love them. It's a kind of a life affirming moment for all the, dragging your late sloping children out to school. There's a lovely, vibe. I was really glad that not one person knew what had happened the night before, because I thought if anybody says a kind word to me, I will fall apart. So maybe it was the lack of sleep, or maybe it was the realization of what had happened. But I was unsettled the next day, and then as soon as I walked the kids to school, I actually also I was sad. I looked down the Ravenhill Road where all my posters had been, and that is something, that is what I've worked for, like I said to you, since October, and they were all gone, and I just felt like this really, really annoys me, and I hadn't got back to my house when a party member, our councillor, had come along in his car, and he said, "Jump in, we're getting the posters up." And we went out with ladders and started putting posters up, and I started to feel better. And I wasn't settled all day, and I went out and canvassed that night, and that just settled me again. Everything was fine. So it didn't feel like aftershock or anything, but it felt unsettled. It wasn't how I should have felt. I'm entitled to do what I was doing, and it did rattle me, but it didn't deter me for even half a day. And and ironically, it gave me a chance to sort of cut through as, who is Elsie Trainor. Before that, it's just very hard to be somebody who sort of quietly comes on the scene. And you asked me about, previous interviews, and you don't have an opportunity to have them. So there was an irony in that they were trying to deprive me of my platform, and actually they served me something of a platform to show, I have a voice, I am determined, and I won't be deterred, and I can stand up for others the way I can stand up for myself, and that's my singular intention. But I'm the most friendly and empathetic person. My determination to stand up is never to cut anyone down.
Your kids obviously found out about it?
Yeah. So the police came to my house immediately afterwards and spent an hour there. My kids have become kind of used to having to go with the flow in our house at the moment. And, the police were so friendly, and, everything felt so normal, and my form was good. I said to the kids, people have been trying to rob my posters, and I didn't get into the detail of it. And they were happy with that, and they felt comfortable with that. So their knowledge of it grew from a very, like any situation, when you're in the situation at the time, it isn't actually as bad. If somebody said to you, would you put your kids in that situation? I would say, no, I won't. I will avoid that. But when you're in it and you're there to protect them, it was fine. And so when it became a news story, then I knew there would be a little bit of chat about it in school and stuff. So I did just say, actually there was like a little bit more to it. And I'm sure yourself, everything was fine. You were there. I wasn't upset. Nobody was upset. So if you hear people talking about it, I just want you to know that's what it was about. And they totally took it in their stride.
That's great. It's great that it wasn't like an added trauma.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. It absolutely did not penetrate at any level.
I know. It probably doesn't hurt that the viral videos, you shouting at them saying, "This is a brave man here, isn't it?" And all the rest of it, what you said. But I think a lot of people would have been a lot more shooken up and affected by it than maybe the way you've described it. Maybe I'm not really getting people of your feeling, but
people are different. People are different, and I can't say I'm a better person because I just am what I am, and it didn't particularly go run too deep with me, and that's just it's just I can't take credit for that. That just is me.
7 brothers, cause
exactly. I've been used to being clobbered all the time.
It's impressive. And how did you find the support from the party? I assume everyone kind of
the party was fabulous. Actually the party is always like, there's a real young energy amongst all we're all candidates now, but the MLAs and when I say young, youthful, there's older ones too, but they have a youthful attitude. And so that was fabulous and immediate. And it was just the same across the board. Like, my neighbours, as soon as, it became public knowledge, there was bottles of wine and there was hugs arriving and there was cards and there was flowers. And, I don't even want to go there about, identity and stuff, but there were so many people who were their opening gambit is, you know, I'm a unionist and this doesn't represent me. Nobody needs to say that to me.
Yeah.
But that was over and over and over again said. And, you know, that's a given. You know, we know you live here too. You know how we live our lives here.
Yeah.
And that's not something we fixate on. And it's never something I fixate on.
And you like I saw some activity on Twitter. You got a bit of outreach from other parties, people from other parties.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I think so. Yeah, I think probably. Yeah.
We long commented. And
Yeah.
I've seen that, and I'm sure there was a few people from other parties. I think Doug Beatty also commented as well.
Yeah, and I got some nice private messages. Of course, you know, everybody knows this is a really hard game, and you know, we're all good people. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah.
I got thousands of messages. I'm still getting emails and messengers and private messages on Twitter, and I got some cards from Dublin just this week. It's massive. Like what people really wanted to not represent. People are, there's all the single message is always like, this doesn't represent us, and it doesn't matter what walk of life we're from. Nobody likes thuggery and intimidation. Intimidation is an age-old game. But look, enough said. We move on. That was of that week, but it's important that we don't let intimidation creep in as a sort of an every election tool and tactic. It's not right, and it serves nobody.
In terms of, so we're close now. Today's Saturday, so it's Thursday, so my maths is very poor. Well, that's about 5 days, 6 days, whatever it is.
5 days.
5 days. So 5 days. The election will come. You're either going to get the result you want, or you don't get the result you want. If you get the result, what is your next weeks and months look like? And if you don't get the results you're looking for, what would your next weeks and months look like? Or is it,
If I get the result, you know, it's been very, very clear that there is a body of work to be done. And so if I get the result, it's about seriously rolling up our sleeves and delivering on the things we've been talking about. Because the one thing that would be so disingenuous, and this is across all the parties who've had the, position to knock doors and hear people's inner thoughts, fears, concerns, and to walk away and not try your very, very hardest to deliver on them. I'm going to people with genuine promises that I will be determined to work.
Yeah.
So that is 100% what it will be. It will be delivering on the big societal pieces that are so broken, like healthcare, education, special educational needs, the cost of living crisis. That's going to take real bravery, innovativeness, and hard work, and very much a positive attitude, because what breaks most of these things is that we have an inability to work together. Yeah. So if I get elected, it's very clear what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of hard, determined work. And that just needs to continue. That needs to never stop. If I don't get elected, I need to return to work. I need to find a job, and I need to pay the bills, and new opportunities will arise, and I'll be open and happy to take them. I found something special here. I found in work, you're kind of specialist, and you do what you do because you're good at it. In politics, it's more like holistic. You need to be good at what you do, but you also need to be a very strong people person. You need to be a good listener. You need to be able to cut through with your voice. And I found something in politics that I don't want to let go of. So yes, I need to pay the bills in May, June and July, but new opportunities will arise. But I'm very focused on being successful. I I want to make it happen. And I think it's the right fit for me, and I think I'm the right fit for here.
Yeah.
But it's not up to me to decide. I've only got one vote on that. I'm voting for me.
Yeah. I was going to ask, I actually didn't know if there's any rules about whether you can vote for yourself. You can vote for
You only vote for yourself once. That's the only rule.
Yeah. Give you guys 10 votes for all the work. Well, Elsie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been really interesting talking to you. We usually finish the podcast with a set of questions, so I'm just going to throw them at you. They're kind of quick fire questions, really easy ones. Voting age for voting for 16-year-olds?
Yeah, I think so. I've spoken to a lot of this is quick fire, so I better keep it short. I've spoken to a lot of first-time voters, and some are more sure-footed than others. And I think people come to maturity and political maturity at different ages. Yeah. So I think on the whole, yes. But my 10-year-old, is very much a 10-year-old. He's not 14. So I think we're different. But I do think so. We can do a lot at 16, and mostly the ones who would want to vote are probably quite tuned in.
Favorite book you've ever read?
Oh,
and I can ask you another question. What do you think of that?
No. What came straight to my head was Catch 22, and it's so long since I've read it, but it just tickles me pink. Yeah. I just think there's a craziness about it, but there's the stylistic writing as well, and the observations. Catch 22 is a kind of a firm favorite.
Favorite film?
That's a hard one. I used to love a movie called Once Upon a Time in New York. I just love that. There was something, I haven't really, I find sometimes when I had more time to watch movies that I could seek out and love, like go to QFT and stuff, I'd find, recently I don't have that kind of time because I have 3 young kids, and so I kind of finish up watching more like chewing gummy movies, and they never really appeal to me, and I'm just it's okay. But so you kind of go back to when you were like 24 or something, and the cinematic and the music and the heartbreak of like it's always that sort of lost opportunity or paralysis, or that kind of a movie appeals to me. Actually, now that you say Dubliners as a book, that is one of my favorite. It's a book of short stories, and every short story is defined by just paralysis, that inability to just push on, and actually everything would have been okay if you just pushed on, but they never can. And so that kind of appeals to me, that sort of where when you're kind of locked in by something that you've constructed yourself.
It's very universal, and it's very heartbreaking, because I think when people are going through that, you've constructed it. Yeah. And you feel trapped in it. Yeah. And everyone else knows it too.
Yeah. So true.
That's very interesting. I'm a bit deep there. Are you, well, it's probably a bad question to ask now, but thing you enjoy watching on Netflix, TV show on Netflix or Amazon?
Gosh, I love the chewing gum nature of Schitt's Creek. That's it's just awesome, What else am I? No, I haven't really. I don't have much time at the moment, so I haven't really. Since sort of lockdown, I don't think I've really been back on Netflix. With any big series, I think Schitt's Creek is kind of the last one that I've just tripped along with and enjoyed thoroughly.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant. Eugene Levy is
yeah.
Really
He's just great.
O'Hara, what's her name? Your woman O'Hara
from Home Alone. I know, and she really is. Yeah. I could lip sync Home Alone to you as well. I babysat in a house where it was the one video, and then we just watched it.
Like it is an objectively quite a good film.
It is. It really is. I still enjoy returning to it now with the kids.
And like you kind of. You always assume that those childhood actors go a bit nuts. I think he did go kind of nuts but like he's kind of stable now. He's like married.
Yeah. I think he's kind of got out of it. You know, his life is more. I suppose he has the funds to sit back.
This is it, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need the sense to know you can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So favorite place to travel in Ireland, north or south?
We've a bit of a love affair with Kerry. Yeah, we just love Kerry. We spend a lot of time in Valentia Island in Kerry. Okay. And anywhere down there sort of, you know, steals our heart. Mm-hmm. Very fond memories of, you know, Donegal. Home. Home is very special to me, but it is home. It's not a travelling experience. Yeah. But I guess Kerry, it's got a richness, you know, it's got a richness of food, it's got a richness of culture, and it's just scenically outstanding, you know. It's absolutely breathtaking, and it's not overrun, you know. It's real, you know. Kerry's a great spot.
Well, I think when people listen to this now, like it might get a bit busier now. People going, right, I need to check out Kerry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Was there a dolphin off the coast of Kerry?
Yeah, Fungi. Poor old Fungi. Yeah. He's gone. Yeah. Well, Fungi was about 40, so he'd outlived his life expectancy. But you know, I'm sure he's just, you know, swimming with the mermaids or something.
And the last one is favorite place to travel that's further afield.
Oh goodness, you know, the world is a great place. And I travelled in Bolivia and Peru, and it's just got a very special piece of you know, it's set in time for me as this very special place. Like I say, it's a little bit behind, you know, in terms of development, in you know, and I know that comes with deprivation and lots of things like that, but it also comes with, you know, a lot hasn't been lost to a lot of those communities. They still have the things that are really important, and I found it to be a very special, open place, and fun. Real sense of fun and music and dancing and simple pleasures.
Okay, interesting. The first Peru we've had, so that's a great one. Just to say, you've been brilliant to talk to, really easy to chat to, Elsie. So thank you, and best of luck on Thursday, and just 6 more days to crawl through, or 5 more days to crawl through, and you'll be out the other side. You know, good or bad, you know, you'd be. Yeah.
I think good or bad, you can just hold your head high and hopefully have connected with people along the way, and you know, maybe that will be enough. You know, I think people like to see ordinary people who would be determined in their corner, but I'm not doing a pitch now, because you're right, it was lovely just to chat, and you've created a real nice zone for that, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you. Best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much.